the next few weeks. We're also expecting more memorial services for the other victims. CNN has obtained audio of what appears to be a child saying they've been shot during the massacre, and it was recorded by a resident who says the audio came from a radio of a law enforcement vehicle outside the school. And it comes as authorities are facing criticism for waiting too long to enter the classroom where the gunman was located. CNN's Nick Valencia has the details.
Oh my God.
Chilling new video captured an apparent radio call outside Robb Elementary School, where a gunman had opened fire inside classrooms.
Are you in there? Where? A kid got shot? They shot a kid?
In the video, what sounds like a student says they've been shot. The man who recorded the video, who did not want to be identified, tells CNN the audio came from the radio of a Customs and Border Protection vehicle outside the school in Uvalde, Texas. He said an officer turned off the radio once officers realized he could hear. This, says new dispatch audio obtained by ABC News, indicates dispatchers relayed that at least one student was alive in the classroom. CNN has not been able to independently verify the audio or at what point during the shooting this occurred. Law enforcement's timeline shows that the gunman remained in the classrooms for more than an hour, while at least 8 911 calls were made by at least 2 students begging for help. Officers had arrived within 2 minutes, but the commander on the scene decided to wait before confronting the gunman.
For the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
The massacre is one of a string of mass shootings that have left the nation on edge. School districts nationwide are intensifying security protocols, fearing copycat attacks. Like in Buffalo, where a gunman opened fire at a Tops supermarket, killing 10 earlier this month. New safety protocols include all doors remaining locked during the school day, and any person who wishes to enter must call ahead for approval.
Americans are on edge. And they're on edge because they don't know if it's going to be their place of worship, a mall, a concert, their children's school.
In Uvalde, the community plans for 2 weeks of funeral services to lay to rest the 21 victims. Uvalde's mayor has decided to postpone a city council meeting in which several new members were to be sworn in, including school police chief Pedro Pete Arredondo. He was elected to the city council earlier this month and reportedly was the official who made the decision not to breach the classrooms while the shooter was locked inside. Arredondo has not spoken to the media since the day of the shooting. The mayor says Arredondo's role in the shooting response will not impact his ability to serve on the council. Arredondo's decision has angered victims' parents, like Amarie Jo Garza's father.
They needed to act immediately, There's kids involved, there's a gun involved, there's an active shooter wanting to do harm.
Well, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators is meeting today to discuss gun legislation, and it comes as a House committee is expected to vote this week on a gun reform package which faces an uphill battle in the Senate. CNN's Jessica Dean joins us now from Washington with more. Jessica, often when you listen to the argument by the NRA, the National Rifle Association, they say a good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun. But we had 19 armed officers at that school. Inside that classroom was an 18-year-old with an AR-15, and those officers didn't stop him. What are lawmakers doing at this meeting today about gun regulation? What are they considering?
Well, Linda, they're actually on recess right now, so this is happening as a virtual meeting, but we know that they are talking today. Senator John Cornyn, one of Texas's senators, has been deputized by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell to engage in these bipartisan talks, also being led by Democrat Senator Chris Murphy from the state of Connecticut, where Sandy Hook happened some 10 years ago. And they are trying to find some middle ground here. Murphy has been honest and candid, saying, look, he's not going to get everything he wants, but he doesn't want perfect to be the enemy of good. So what they're talking about are strengthening and expanding background checks, if not possible, universal background checks. They're talking about safe storage. They're talking about mental health resources, and also adding resources to school safety across the country. These are things that they hope could make a difference. But those conversations going on right now, and just to make sure everyone understands kind of the lay of the land here in the U.S. Senate, they're up against the filibuster, where you need 60 votes to move any legislation forward. And of course, we've got this 50-50 split in the U.S. Senate right now on the Democrats and the Senate and the Republican side. So they need 10 Republicans to join them. And so far, there has been legislation, Linda, that's come over from the House just in the last year that has just sat there that would be universal background checks and closing some loopholes. That legislation has simply languished because there are not 10 Republicans that will join Democrats in getting that over the finish line. So the hope here from both sides right now that are engaging, and again, that is just the Republicans that are engaging in these talks, because remember, there are still Senate Republicans who believe no action should be taken in this form. But the ones that are engaging are hopeful that they can push something through. And again, the fact that they're in recess right now, that means that the momentum could fade. You know, last week, they were getting phone call after phone call after phone call from enraged constituents demanding they do something. And if that drops off, Linda, Republicans know that they won't have to answer to constituents. That is some of the fear on the Democratic side, that the pressure will be released if they don't move quickly enough. Linda?
This is often the problem, isn't it? There's a lot of seemingly some sort of attempt for action after a massacre, and then it just fades away until the next one. Jessica Dame for us in Washington. Thank you. Well, President Joe Biden has met with New Zealand's Prime Minister at the White House to discuss gun violence and online extremism, two issues that New Zealand has cracked down on harder than the US. Mr. Biden told Jacinda Ardern he wants to work with New Zealanders on those efforts and find out what their conversations were like. The country has passed tougher gun laws after the Christchurch massacre, which of course happened in 2019, and has taken action against online radicalization. Well, US senators discuss, and as US senators discuss possible gun reform, neighbouring Canada is taking a tougher stance. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today announcing a bill that would freeze handgun ownership. If approved, Canadians would no longer be able to buy, sell or transfer or import handguns. Canada is also moving to ban hundreds of types of military-style rifles and force owners to sell ones they already have back to the government. Joining us now to discuss is CNN correspondent Alexandra Field. And Alexandra, less than a week after the massacre in Texas, Canada's Prime Minister has proposed stricter gun regulation, saying Canadians don't have to wait for a massacre to act. Is he sending a message to US lawmakers?
Look, you could certainly take it that way because it does come on the heels of Uvalde. It does come on the heels of Buffalo and so many other crises we've seen here in the United States. But ultimately, if you look back, this is something that has been part of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's platform for a long time. It is something that he has campaigned on, and he has taken steps to improve gun safety and to work toward gun control in the past. But this is sweeping. 2 years ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a ban on 1,500 styles of assault weapons. He is now saying there will be a buyback for affected businesses and gun owners. And beyond that, he's really going after the handguns with this bill that will stop the buying and selling, stop the trafficking or the importing, that will also raise fines for smugglers. And he's taking additional steps like limiting the number of rounds on long guns to 5. That's it. That means the modification of existing guns and the change in the manufacture of guns that can be sold in Canada in the future. So you're talking about wide-ranging reforms. He does, however, nod, of course, to the crisis in the U.S. He tells Canadians that they need only look south of the border to see that the problem only gets worse if the government does not take action.
Exactly. So I'm wondering, Alexandra, how much support there is for this tougher gun regulation in Canada. Is this proposal likely to pass?
It is likely to pass. It seems to have widespread support. It is likely to pass in the fall. He is saying at the same time that the majority of gun owners in Canada do act responsibly. But again, he is telling the public in Canada and the world at large that the problem of gun violence is increasing in Canada and that these steps are now necessary.
All right, Alexandra Field for us in New York. Thanks very much.